Okay. Hi, Mr. Lee.
Hi, good afternoon, Puan Maria.
Okay. All right. Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the KLSF STEM webinar. I am Marian from Utah. I am also the KLSF Secretariat. Okay, just for the participant info, the sign in, sign out, and also the feedback form, we will post it in our KLESF Facebook. Okay, so our webinar today, the title will be, Do You Mind Eating Plastic? I mind. Thank you for taking your time for being here today with us. So just a little housekeeping before we started. If you have any question during the webinar, please type them into the chat box. I will bring it up later during the Q&A at the end of this session. So let's welcome our speakers today, Mr. Lee Chi-hyong. He is currently an assistant lecturer at Center for Foundation Studies, Kampa Campus, University Tunku Abdul Rahman, Utah. He's been teaching foundation physics courses for more than 50 years. His interests are in physics, education, and e-learning. Now, without further ado, I will turn over the time to Mr. Lee. Over to you, Mr. Lee.
Thanks, Puan Mariam, for the intro. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. We hope you are having a good afternoon. And let me start to share my screen first. Okay, so I would like to thank mostly for having this Minggu Science Negara and give me the opportunity to share with you all this topic. Do you mind eating plastic? I mind. So before we go further, let's have some basic information about plastic. It was first invented in 1907, okay, way long before it's being populated. Okay, then it has been populated our lives from about 70 years after World War II. Okay, it made our modern world possible. Okay, a lot of our gadgets are made of plastics. Okay, apart from gadgets, there are a lot of things made of plastics. Common types of plastics are the PETE, HDPE, LDPE, PVC, nylon, and so on. The most common plastics that we have heard would be actually the PVC, nylon, and so on, or polyester, PE. Plastic are just everywhere. Okay, it has been part of our human life that is hard to live without. Am I right? Can you live your life without plastic? Plastic generally have great properties. They are versatile, lightweight, tough, a great lifespan. Okay, great lifespan is the most important thing. Transparent, waterproof, and so on. It brings conveniences to our lives and businesses. It prolongs the lifespan of goods and food, especially, and thus reduce the waste or food waste and so on. From the hygienic aspects, it make our life more certain aspect more hygienic, such as we have this disposable plastic syringe. Imagine you have to share syringe with others, with plastic disposable syringe, we can actually avoid from transmitting diseases and so on. Apart from that, we have this disposable utensils and so on. And with all these, so benefits of plastic, humans start to produce, plastics in mass. Worldwide demand for plastic has risen from 1.7 million tons in 1950 to more than 300 million tons, in 2011. Up to data about 2020 is already more than 300 million tons already. So here shows the so-called the plastic productions and their uses, from 1950. So you can see that most of the production for plastic use is actually more on packaging, followed by the building and constructions and so on, with the PVC pipes and so on. So do you think that your life, or do you think what will be your life without plastic? What will be your life without plastic? And how your life will be with the absence of plastics? It's hard to imagine, right? Can we actually live without plastics? Definitely we cannot. But let's look at what happened to the production of plastic. The production of plastic also causes carbon emission. It actually has strong carbon footprint to the world. So with the increase of production of plastic, the carbon emission also increases. Okay, not only that, okay, we know that okay, plastic actually cause pollution. Okay, so in order to solve the problem of plastic pollution, we have to actually look at the sources of plastic waste. Okay, so from here we can see that okay, yes, it has been mostly produced to be used in packaging. So the waste from packaging will be the highest, right, among the rest. Right? Packaging, textiles, or other sectors, consumer, transport, electrical, construction, and so on. So the cost of plastic to the world, as we know, okay, pollution is part of it. Okay, why there are pollutions? Right? Because not all plastic can be recycled. Right? Not many plastic are being reused. Then plastic pollution is not just to the land. Okay, it causes pollutions in the air, in the land, rivers, and oceans. And it kill animals. Right? Not in future, but already happened. Right? As we all know. Right? It kill marine animals, right? Even birds. And now we can see that the cows in India, they are eating plastics as well. And threat to the health of all living beings. So a lot of times we only focus on the plastic pollution in oceans. When we actually search online, they actually show a lot of images that plastics are actually floating in the seawater and so on. But the sources of marine plastic pollutions are actually from rivers, and they are from the land side, okay, as you can see in this image. Right? From the residential areas, from the industry, okay, they actually dump, okay, somehow, okay, mismanagement of the waste, rubbish, and so on. The plastic get into our rivers or even lakes, then they will be actually flow into the ocean. Okay, so what actually, how the plastic actually cause problem to the sea ocean? Okay, 80% of plastic litter in oceans come from the land-based sources, as shown in previous image. Right, 80% of them come from land-based sources, and 1.15 million and more tons of plastic enters the ocean every year via rivers globally. And 94% of the plastics that enters the ocean end up on the seafloor. Okay, how about those 6% floating on the sea surface? Are they very few only? If you look at this, okay, you'll be shocked. Okay, these are the number and weight of plastic pieces afloat at sea. From the previous diagram, you see that only 6% are floating on the sea. But from this, okay, 6%, they have been distributed throughout all the oceans on the earth, with the largest, okay, in around North Pacific and Indian Ocean. Then, from where the plastic so-called waste come from? Okay, if we look at the net exporter of plastic waste, okay, statistic that obtained in 2019, right, Japan actually exported the highest number of plastic waste to other countries, followed by Germany, US, France, and Italy. Then from where they exported all this plastic waste, right, actually not just plastic waste, there are other wastes as well. Right? The net importer will be India, Laos, Malaysia, yes, Malaysia, Vietnam, and Turkey. Right? With the Turkey the highest. Right? This was the statistic in 2019. Then what happened to the rubbish that imported to all these countries? And these countries are not first world country. So definitely there will be mismanagement of the waste. Then some of them will landed in the rivers, then end up in the oceans. Okay. So with the pandemic, okay, COVID-19 pandemic, okay, governments have introduced MCO, and due to MCO, it has changed our living behaviors. Okay, MCO a big win for online food deliveries and cloud kitchens. I believe throughout these two years plus MCOs, we have been ordering food from online platform, food deliveries, involving food deliveries like Foodpanda, GrabFood, and so on. So online food deliveries have ballooned with the introduction of movement control orders. Customers got to experience the convenience of food deliveries right? Especially in Malaysia, Southeast Asia countries. And now they are able to fully accept the service and culture, okay? The food delivery as part of the culture. Then food delivery sales continue to grow despite the restaurant were reopened. My government allowed the restaurant to reopen over the period of time, and now it's fully reopened. But the food delivery sales continue to grow, right? Because it has been part of consumer lifestyle. Then what does it mean? It simply means that there are more plastic packagings and waste. Am I right? How do you handle those plastic packaging? Do you keep them, wash them, keep them, and reuse, or you just dump them away? So increase of plastic waste during COVID-19 is actually a fact that we can't so-called keep an eye away. Okay, all this happened because of panic buying right before the MCOs. When government were to declare, okay, there will be MCOs, they were panic buying, or buy a lot of things, then a lot of them end up in the rubbish dump as well. Then there will be more takeaway food pack and wrap in single-use plastic bags. High disposal of PPE, such as face masks and medical kits. Nowadays will be the test kits. If you have ever used a test kit, then you'll realize that inside the test kit, they'll have this plastic bag, for biosafety disposal. The test kit itself is actually the casing itself made of plastic and so on. And after we test it, definitely we'll dispose it. Then if it is not handled properly, you'll end up as a plastic waste as well. Then the most crucial one will be the improper disposal of face masks. As we can see everywhere, on the road, we'll see some face masks there. Then what will happen? They will be somehow end up in drain, then inside the river, and end up in the ocean. Then the other problem that caused by plastic pollution is actually the microplastic. This is the main part of today's sharing. So what is microplastic? So microplastics are microbeads in customer products, cosmetic products, or formed from the breakdown of larger plastics due to domestic, industrial, and coastal activities, such as wind, water wave, and sea wave, and so on. So it breaks down the plastics. Larger pieces of plastic are being broken down into smaller and smaller pieces. So if you look at the diagram here, for plastic pieces more than 1 meter is called megaplastic. Slightly smaller from 1 meter to 1 inch will be microplastic. Then from about 2.5 cm to 5 mm will be mesoplastic. Microplastic will be the one smaller than 5 mm. Then nanoplastic will be the one smaller than 1 micron. So microplastic has been found abundance in Eastern tropical Pacific, actually everywhere in the sea. So this is statistic, done in year 2020. So there's a projection, in 2020, it is found 112 pieces of microplastics in 1 cubic meter of water. And it's projected, about in 20 years' time, the number will be doubled. In 80 years' time, the number will be fourfold, coming to fivefold. They'll be getting more and more. So apart from oceans, where microplastics are found, they are found on land and roads, rivers and ocean, in the air, inside animals' body, in our food, from where? From seafood, such as mussels, oysters, fishes, sea salt, honey, yes, honey. Microplastics are found in honey, through the production of honey, the packaging of honey, and so on, beers, etc. And it's also found in drinking water, it's found more than 4,000 pieces of microplastics, annually from tap water, and more than 90,000 pieces of microplastics from bottled water annually. If you drink bottled water every day for 1 year, you will be consuming more than 90,000 pieces of microplastics. That's a lot, right? So we can expect that the microplastic that we inhale from the air, that we consume through the food, the seafood, the sea salt, and so on, drinking water, and so on, So they'll end up in our body. So study found that plastic fibers were present in 87% of human lungs studied. Right? Not just human lungs. Right? It's also in other organs as well. And most shocking thing is actually in babies' placenta. Okay, how much microplastic that we are eating? So according to WWF, right, we are eating about 1 credit card size of microplastic a week. Okay, so the proof that microplastic exists in human body, okay, first was found actually in humans too. Okay, then later actually they studied more. They found that Americans actually accidentally eat 200 tiny pieces of towels, beads, and plastics foams every day. Every day. Okay, so how worried should you be? So the study that actually found microplastic, okay, in placentas of unborn babies. So definitely it will be transmitted to the fetus, okay, inside the body of babies. So do you have to really worry about eating plastic? Will the body actually so-called discrete them out, okay, or they will stay in our body? After you have consumed them, will they stay inside our body and something happen to them, or they will somehow actually pass through our body and come out? Or if they stay inside our body, will microplastic be beneficial to our body? Extra nutrients? You become superpower and so on? Will it be? What do you think? So microplastic in human body, okay? So a number of industrial and consumer products made of plastic or actually contain endocrine disrupting chemicals, in short, EDCs. Which, okay, from study shows that these EDCs have negative impact on our human health. Okay? And except for those known compounds used to make plastics, okay, the full effect or harm of microplastic in human body is still largely unknown. But even so, right, there are many studies done, right, so that found possible harms of microplastic to human body. First is the phthalates. Right? Phthalates is a type of chemical used to make plastic flexible. Right? It has been shown in lab that it will increase the growth of breast cancer cells. So it will induce cancer cells. Right? Then secondly, right, microplastic fed to mice, okay, it will accumulate in the mice liver, kidneys, intestines, okay, and it will increase the oxidative stress molecules in the livers, okay, which will cause harm to the liver. Right? They also increase the level of a molecule that might be toxic to the brain, so might induce brain cancer as well, probably. Then BPA, okay, is one of the best studied chemicals found in plastics. Okay, if your parents, okay, probably you have heard of this BPA. Malaysia have banned those plastic products contain BPA, okay, used for babies, okay, like milk bottles and so on. So it is usually found in plastic packaging or plastic storage containers and can leak out into food. So we will be consuming BPA if they are not actually withdraw from the production of plastic container and packaging. So some evidences have shown that BPA can interfere with reproductive hormones, especially in women and male babies, causing problem in reproduction in future. So other studies also shows that, okay, the obesogens are artificial chemicals found in various food containers, baby bottles, toys, plastic, cookware, cosmetics are believed to contribute to obesity. Okay, so obesity is actually one of the problems in modern world. Okay, and possibly the source could be actually due to all these plastics. A recent study also by the Endocrine Society, okay, found that the impact of EDCs could extend beyond more than one generation. Right, just now we actually say you actually induce the breast cancer and so on. And this can actually extend beyond more than one generation by contributing to the significant drop in sperm count and sperm quality. So the male babies are male, okay? As shown in test tube studies, oil microplastic in the air may cause lung cells to produce inflammatory chemicals, so cause harm to lungs. But we are breathing them every day, day in, day out. And strong evidence that shows eating microplastic leads to malnutrition and lacerations. Evidence also shows that eating nanoplastic causes cellular damage. Right? We have to know microplastic, when they further break down, they become nanoplastics. That's even harder to trace. Okay. Other studies that shows how microplastic affect our health. So you can see in the nervous system in the brain, or the respiratory systems, the kidney system, digestive and excretory system, placenta barrier, skin, and so on. Right? There will be more and more, right, coming out, more studies. But however, all so-called all these discovery or actually findings, okay, sort of like hard to reproduce, right? Because the method used to study will be different. There's no standard, okay, way of studying all this microplastic defect. And sometimes the effect can be actually so-called takes time, right, to so-called to be seen, or not immediately. You consume microplastic today, or the effect maybe can be seen only 5 years later. Okay, then it's hard to attribute back to the microplastic, So there are more study on this adverse health effect of plastics. Okay, so these are a few sources that I would like to share with you, where you can actually take a look from their website. Others, okay, from YouTube, or you can actually consider to watch these two documentary, The Plastic Problem from PBS, the other one also from PBS, The Plastic Wars. Well, if you rewatch the recording later, you're actually able to find this, or you can just search the title. Okay, it's very informative. Okay, then you might actually ask, isn't that we have this 3R? Okay, we have been like propagating this 3R campaign since very long ago. Why the plastic still cause a problem to us? Right? We have this reduce and recently refuse, then reuse and recycle. Okay, are they actually helping us? This is another infographic telling us there are 9 reasons that we should refuse single-use plastic. Right? First, they are made from fossil fuels, okay, which actually pollute the environment. They have huge carbon footprint, but will still be in there in hundreds of years. Right? Plastic, and only a tiny percentage is recycled, right? About 10% or 1/9. Then it leaches toxins into food and drinks, right? It causes hormone disruption and cancers that we have seen just now. It pollutes our ocean, kill marine animals and birds, enter our food chains. So the question is, do all these reasons going to change you? If yes, how much and how long? Are you persistent in actually like refusing single-use plastic? This question will help to answer this. Reuse, refuse, reuse, and recycle. What the 3R. I think most of us are actually, maybe we actually so-called have certain level of awareness. We actually try to reduce, but we can't totally refuse from using plastic, right? And most of the time we can't actually last long due to the influence of the surrounding, right? Due to the culture, the business culture, right? Even you actually try to refuse plastic, they'll give you sometimes, right? And we can't keep too much of plastics at home, right? So then another reinvent of the use of recycled plastic. Okay, for instance, 10 ways recycled plastic are used in constructions. Okay, they try to reuse or recycle the plastic to be used in construction areas. Then Adidas shoes made from recovered plastic oceans. Okay, and the Lego groups, review first prototype of Lego bricks made from recycled plastic, and so on. Okay. All these are they going to help us to reduce the problem of plastic pollution or even the microplastic harm? Do you think? Right? The answer is definitely no. Then how about plastic eater bacteria, worms, and mushroom? Yes, they have actually discovered that there are bacteria that are eating plastic, there are worms that are eating plastics, and even mushrooms are eating plastics. Right? More and more so-called options that are trying to show us there's hope to reduce the plastic waste. Right? Are they helping? Right? Even with this plastic eater bacteria, worms, and mushroom, they are not. Right? They are giving us false hope, and end up what? You think that we have all this measure, we have all this method that we can continue to use plastics. Okay, if you actually pay attention to the previous video that I shared just now, the screen, right? Industry use recycling to sell more plastic. Right, that is one of the facts. So having all these 3R campaigns with the worm eaters, plastic eater, bacteria, and even mushroom is not going to solve our problem. And they take time as well. Okay, especially like bacteria to dissolve plastic, okay, or the mushroom to dissolve the plastic, it takes time. Not so easy. So all this might give us a sense of false hope, right? At least for now, like we don't see there's an end to the problem with all this 3R measure or even the plastic eater and so on. Right? The discovery of plastic eater will not solve the plastic problem. The process is real slow, right? And the 3R is not effective, right, worldwide, or not just in the world country, even the first world country, the 3R is simply not effective. Right? If you're aware from the chart that I showed, the top countries that export their plastic waste, they are from first world country, Japan, US, German, Italy, and so on. Okay, they also have 3R campaign in their countries, but why they still need to export? That shows that, okay, it's not effective. So reuse or reprocess of plastic waste into other things, like just now Adidas, the shoes, the Lego bricks, and so on, right? It's simply not productive. They are still plastics, and most likely will be in lower quality. As you know, once you recycle the things, you become lower quality. And at the end, it still will be discarded as plastic waste. Okay, so all these are not really helpful. So is there any effective actions in place? Okay, can we actually like reduce the use, or can we actually like stop using plastics? We can't, right? It's like really impossible to stop using plastics. Then is there any effective actions in place? Apart from the 3R, as we know, it's not so effective, but at least it helped in certain extent, right? Right? Is there any other actions that we can think of? Then what can we do, and what should we do personally? Okay, there are some viable solutions that, okay, I can gather. Okay, so first, fundings and effort to clean up plastic waste. Okay, there must be fundings from the government, from the private, okay, and there must be MGO, okay, that actually put in effort to help even the government agencies, right, to help to clean up plastic waste and reduce the use of plastics, such as like the one that you can see here, the small image here. The Jakarta startup provides cleaning products without the plastics. Right? They have big container. You bring your own container to go and buy the detergent and so on. Then the most common one will be the replacement of plastic straws with the sugarcane straw, paper straw, and so on. Right? With the gigantic or a boat that clean up the ocean waste, or actually the shops that sell things without plastics. Okay, sell things, you have to get your own glass container and so on to go and buy your beans and so on. Okay, so by all this, you'll reduce our plastic dependency. With that, or hopefully, there will be less plastics in the market. And next will be avoid and reducing the single-use plastic, okay, especially for the packaging and so on. So, and invention to substitute the plastic, as mentioned just now, the straws, uh, uh, apart from the plastic straws, we actually use sugar cane straw, paper straw, and so on. Right? And consumers' will and voice to increase producer responsibility. So the consumers must actually press the companies, the industry, okay, to reduce the use of plastics, right, in their products. Right? It must come from the government and consumers. You cannot actually rely on the companies to have the awareness to change. Okay? It's difficult because, as we know, okay, to get rid of plastic, you increase the cost in the production and so on. So the roles of big companies, right, they have to come up with so-called measure to reduce the plastics in their production and products. Then international governmental alliance bodies, right? It's not enough for individual countries, the government of individual countries to come up with their policies and try to solve the problem. It will not be enough. It has to be an international governmental alliance bodies at the international level. Right? Because why? Because a lot of these companies are multinational companies. Okay, so they'll actually try to, if your countries have strict regulations and rules, policies, they'll try to actually make their products in other countries. Then they actually import the products into the countries to so-called shy away from those, or actually escape from those responsibilities and costs. Then government policies and incentives, right? That is also important, right? To encourage the local industry, right? To help to solve the problem of plastics pollution or plastic production. Then lastly will be the banks and investor. Okay, this will be important. As we know, as company they want to grow big, they'll actually rely on investor and banks to get the resources. So if banks and investors set the rules that the companies must have so-called policies in place that take care of environment or reduce the pollutions and so on, only then they can get the money and so on. That it will help. Right? So individual effort will not be enough. Right? The efforts has to come from all levels. So individually, okay, we can actually so-called prepare a lot of infographic, right, to so-called bring awareness, right, to kids, even to the society. Right? So I found this website lessplastic.co.uk. Right? This website actually have produces many infographics which are actually interesting, like 9 reasons to refuse single-use plastic, 9 ways you can reduce ocean plastic, 9 tips for living with less plastic, or 9 more tips for living with less plastics, or 9 ways to travel with less plastic, and so on. There are many more. Okay, so apart from the website, okay, for awareness, okay, for actual action, right, like NGO, right, NERDA, right, it's a NGO, a company, right, at UK. Right, it was founded by Joshua Beach, okay, to clean up the microplastic from UK coastlines, okay, because he's from UK. Right, one day he actually went to the beach or doing his undergraduate studies, I think university studies, and he actually found the beach is actually so-called polluted by all these plastics. Then he actually come up with the idea to clean up. Okay, so he developed a hand-powered trommel, right, small scale, right. The one actually show in the middle left picture, a small scale suction machine that will actually so-called suck up the plastics, right, debris. And what happened after they suck up, they don't actually like so-called dump it. They actually clean up, then they make them into phone cases, as you can see on the middle left. Yes, these phone cases is actually made of the debris or plastic that they actually clean up from the beaches. Then when they make into this, okay, every single phone case will be different, unique, because it's actually based on the debris collected from that place with the coordinate. Okay, the coordinate of the beach where the debris are collected will be engraved on the phone case. Yes, it will be engraved on the phone case. So different types of debris that they actually pick up, okay, the design will be different. Then after they actually so-called recycle and remake them into a phone case, that's not the end. Okay, Noodle actually created this circular economy to ensure that, okay, the phone cases will never become waste again. So they actually have this schema whereby they will buy back the phone cases if you decided not to want already. They actually have this scheme to buy back. Then they will remake into new products. Okay, so at least better. So rules from company, okay, what we can see for some big companies, they are actually trying to so-called play their part, okay, like Nestle, okay, they actually guarantee that 100% of recyclable or reusable packaging by 2025. So just another 3 years more. Hopefully they are able to realize this. So we will hope that there will be more and more companies, especially those multinational companies, okay, big companies, to actually practice this. Right? They will actually change their practice by use recyclable or reusable packaging, especially reusable. Okay, recycle, okay, end up, okay, consumers will still actually open it, okay, consume the thing, then throw away the recycled plastic. Then it can no longer be the recycled, then become plastic waste, still become a plastic waste. So this is not a so-called end, okay, the end of story. It's not the full solution, but it helps to reduce the production of the plastic waste. Okay. So as mentioned just now, global issue, global effort. Okay, it's not enough for one government or one country to play their roles. Okay, as we can see, like some countries in the Africa, they're actually banning plastic straws, even plastic bags. Okay, as you know, in Malaysia, some states they are banning these plastic bags, but it's not going to solve problems. Okay, by individual state or even individual country. It's a global issue. Must come from solution must come from the global, okay, worldwide. So OECD, okay, Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, okay, they actually come up with this policy, improving plastic management, trends, policy responses, and the role of international cooperation and trade, which will help to reduce the pollution and problem caused by plastics. Okay, just reduce. Okay, but is so much important, right? So any countries, right, under this OECD, any companies under this OECD countries will have to actually comply to all these policies, regulations, right? Last part, as I mentioned, the bank and investor, okay, what they can do, okay. In recent years, okay, they have come up with this ESG, okay. It's the acronym for environmental, social, and corporate governance. Okay, the three broad categories of areas of interest, okay, for what is termed as socially responsible investor. Okay, they are investors who consider it important to incorporate their values and concerns, such as environmental concerns, okay, or social concerns into their selections and investment, instead of simply considering the potential profitability and or risk presented by the investment opportunity. So not just about earning, right, return of investment and so on, where they look at the environmental concerns, the social concerns, and so on. Okay, so bank and investor, they should actually embedded this, okay, into their practice. Okay, what ESG actually promote? Okay, they promote environmental and or social characteristic, those good social characteristic, and it tilted towards sectors, companies, or projects with positive ESG characteristics, excludes certain companies based on ESG criteria. Okay, so if any companies they want to actually expand their company, they want to get investment, okay, from those ESG bankers and investors, so the companies have to adjust their so-called direction, right? They have to fulfill the ESG characteristics. Only then they can get the money. So imagine if worldwide all the bankers, all the investors, they are so-called made to comply with ESG, okay, characteristic. So all the companies that wanted to borrow money, they have to comply to this, and this will greatly solve the problems, right? The plastic problem, the pollution problems. Right? Best in class invest only in companies that lead their peer groups. Okay, not only the company itself, also lead their peer groups in ESG performance. Right? And invest with a thematic focus on UN sustainability, sustainable development goal. Okay, as you know, they are this UN SDG goals. Okay, so if all the bankers investors, they can actually consider this, okay, and embedded this in their practice, then it will really help. So good news for Malaysia. Malaysia is actually more excluded from this SDG. So from the study from PwC, okay, research, and Malaysian listed firms, okay, the public listed company, PLCs, okay, are fare well in ESG. So not only the world, Malaysia is actually doing quite well, okay, although it's still new, okay, limited to public listed companies. Okay, hopefully this will actually create a culture in other companies in Malaysia as well. So hopefully Malaysia will be able to play a major role in helping the world to reduce the plastic problems. So apart from what we can do, okay, mentioned just now, right, these are the top 10 largest plastic producing companies. They are still expanding their so-called businesses. They are building larger factories and so on. So something must be done on these big companies. So either from the consumer side, okay, from the government policy and so on, or it has to, the policies must not be a very so-called generic or general type. It has to be very specific, which will able to force all these, okay, plastic producing companies to look for substitutions, right, of the plastics and reduce the production of plastic and help to curb the plastic pollution. Okay, so with that, okay, every single action counts, be it big or small. Okay, so as I have listed all the efforts, all the so-called possible solutions, or there are things that we can do from our side, there are things that government should do, and the global level, big companies and even the banks and investors can do. Right? Every single action counts if we really want to solve this problem. So let's do it together. Let's save the world from plastic threats. My sharing will so-called end here. So thank you. Any questions that you want to ask?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lee, for your great sharing. I hope this could inspire the participant. So for our participant, if you have any question, you can type it in our chat box, or you can also post it in our FB comment column. We will read it for Mr. Lee to answer.
Yeah, previously I have received so-called 2 questions. Okay, one was actually, can we actually like not using plastic in this era? But the answer is very obvious, which we can't. There are a lot of things that are made of plastic that we can't actually look for substitution. For instance, okay, like plastic straw. Okay, there has been a campaign to use stainless steel straw, which seems to be so-called good. Seems to be good that we can reduce the use of plastic straw. Right? But apart from it is costly, or to buy the stainless steel straw, right? The production of stainless steel straw is actually not environmental friendly. Right? If you look at how stainless steel is being produced, right, it's not environmental friendly as well. Right? Chemicals involved, right? The use of the energy sources will be high and so on. Okay, so we are trying to come up with, the society is trying to come up with solutions, but not all are actually good solutions. Right? The second question that I received previously was from where so-called we actually eat plastic, the source of plastics in our body. So just now I have highlighted in my slides. Right? They are from the food, from the water that we drink, even from the air that we breathe. So there's no escape from that. Right? We just simply can't. Right? And as as I've actually shown that, okay, the plastic from the big plastic, where you actually broken down into a smaller and smaller piece of plastic, where after microplastic, there will be nanoplastics, or even microplastics smaller than 5 mm, plus 8.5 mm. It's actually difficult for us to actually see. And it's very common when we eat food or drink beverages from plastic packaging, okay, definitely you actually so-called ingest some of the plastics that we can't avoid.
Thank you, Mr. Lee, for answering the two questions. So based on our KLSF Facebook and also YouTube, there is no other, hold on. There is one question posted by Megan Gore. Is plastic the only scary thing we have been eating into our bodies, or are there others?
It depends what you refer to. We have been like eating a lot of things, even breathing in like germs or bacteria and so on. Those are scary things as well. Okay, but in terms of the pollutants, okay, plastic is apart from chemicals. You know, we can actually so-called consume chemicals from all sorts of things, even from pesticide, the so-called fertilizers and so on. Okay, those chemicals or toxic or those toxic from food and so on. So plastic is another thing. Maybe we can avoid eating plastic, but microplastic is kind of hard.
Okay, so is there any questions from the participants? Right. All right. If you have any further questions that we would like to ask Mr. Lee after this, you can also, there is one more question, Mr. Lee, from Kip Bashri. Greeting, Mr. Lee. He's asking, in your opinion, if the practice of 3R and other common solution to reduce plastic is not effective, then what can be our next move to reduce plastic pollution? And will there ever be an end to this microplastic problem?
Okay. Yes, 3R and common solutions are to reduce plastic is not really effective. And we have no way to get rid of plastic from our life. Okay, so as mentioned, listed just now, okay, the few moves that we can actually so-called apply from personal level up to the government level, international level, to reduce the plastic pollution. Right? The main so-called solution to reduce plastic pollution is actually to reduce the production of plastic. In order to reduce the so-called production of plastic, it has to reduce the dependency of plastics in our common life. So it has to start from our level. We have to reduce, and it must be from en masse, the whole population. It cannot be from individual so-called family. Yes, we start from individual family, but we have to actually so-called propagate and actually send out the message to all, right? Especially from government. Right? As you can see, if the government actually have the will, right, to do it, or they come up with the rules, then we have to comply. Like I mentioned, the few countries in South Africa, they actually ban the plastic straw and plastic bags and so on. Okay, so they actually get rid of the problems, okay, plastic problem in their countries. Although not 100%, but at certain level. Okay, so there will be no end to this microplastic problem in the near future. I don't see, okay, in near future we're able to get rid of this, but it's something that we need to actually do. Or we should actually try our best to actually so-called reduce the problem of this microplastic.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. So for other participants, if you have any other further question in regards to this title, you can also send it to our KLSF email and we will forward it to Mr. Lee for him to revert back or to answer for your question. Mr. Lee, I see that you are showing the short quiz QR code, right, for the
Yes.
participant?
Yes, there will be a short quiz about 10 to 12 questions, okay, for you all to take part. Okay, top 3 winners will be awarded with a limited edition of KLSF t-shirt. So there's no time limit, but only the the winners with the most number of correct answer and the fastest way, the top 3 will actually win the t-shirt. So good luck to you all. Right, thank you very much for joining this session.
Okay, so thank you so much, Mr. Lee. It looked like we have covered all of the questions. For our participants, if you are interested to join for the short quiz, just scan the QR code on your screen. And we have also posted the sign out and also feedback form in our KLSF Facebook column for you to fill up. So we hope that you can kindly fill up your feedback after the webinar. And to Mr. Lee, thank you for your time. Thank you for being here with us today in Minggu Sains Negara. And we would like to, hopefully in future, we will invite you and hopefully you will be one of our speakers also. Okay, if there's no other question for the participant, we will end the session today. Thank you for joining us today and we hope to see you again next time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Bye, Mario.